Lauren Bacall was a Jewish girl from the Bronx, and Humphrey Bogart was raised on Manhattan's Upper West Side. Together they made some of the greatest film noir movies the world had ever seen, and their May to December romance will go down in history as one of Hollywood's most glamorous marriages. Lauren Bacall, 19, was a former model, starring in her first leading film role when she met Humphrey Bogart, who was 45, on the film To Have and Have Not in 1944. Bogart was married to his third wife, actress Mayo Methot, at the time. Despite their 25-year age gap, sparks flew between the two stars, and their relationship progressed quickly. The movie debuted on January 20th, 1945, and Bogart was divorced soon after. He and Bacall tied the knot on May 21st, 1945, at the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Louis Bromfield's farm in Lucas, Ohio. They would go on to have 2 children together, staying married until Bogart's death in 1957. Bacall wasn't the least bit interested in her future husband the first time she saw him on screen in Casablanca. The friend she saw the movie with found him sexy. I thought she was crazy, Bacall told Vanity Fair in 2011. When they met in person a few years later, her first impression of him was a cordial, polite, and friendly man. He told jokes to make her feel more comfortable in front of the camera, and soon their working relationship became a flirtatious friendship. In her memoir, Be Myself, Bacall recounted how 3 weeks into filming, Bogart stopped by her trailer to say goodnight. She was brushing her hair and he was standing behind her. Suddenly he leaned over, put his hand under my chin, and kissed me. It was impulsive. He was a bit shy, no lunging wolf tactics. He took a worn package of matches out of his pocket and asked me to put my phone number on the back. I did. I don't know why I did, except it was kind of part of our game. Bogey was meticulous about not being too personal. He was known for never fooling around with women at work or anywhere else. He was not that kind of man. And also he was married to a woman who was a notorious drinker and fighter. A tough lady who would hit you with an ashtray lamp anything as soon as not. When director Howard Hawks got wind of the affair, he tried to put a stop to it by telling Bacall it was just a fling, that Bogart would dump her once filming ended. He even threatened to ruin her career, bluffing that he would send her to the lowest studios in Hollywood. Hawks used to say to Bogey, "You don't have to get serious about this girl. Take her downtown to a hotel and get a room with her. That's enough." That was not Bogey's scene at all. Bacall revealed decades later. Her mother disliked her new boyfriend too. When she came to visit Bacall, she mused out loud about what her daughter was thinking by pursuing a married man 25 years her senior who had a drinking problem, according to numerous sources. Of course, no one successfully deterred the union. Bogart became a father for the first time at the age of 46 when the couple welcomed their firstborn, a son they named Stevie, presumably after Bogart's characters Steve to Have and Have Not. Presumably after Bogart's character Steve in the film To Have and Have Not in January 1946. Their daughter Leslie was born on August 23, 1952. Following the success of their first film together, credited in a large part due to their on-screen chemistry, the pair was cast in the film noir movie The Big Sleep almost immediately after. They also starred in Dark Passage in 1947 and Key Largo in 1948 together. Though their relationship was marred by mutual infidelity, his with his longtime hairdresser Verita Peterson and hers with Frank Sinatra, their mutual deep care for each other was evident until the end. I never believed I could love anyone again. For so many things have happened in my life to me that I was afraid to love, Bogart wrote in a love letter to Bacall at the beginning of the relationship. Now I'm afraid that you'll become impatient and that I'll lose you. But even if that happened, I won't stop loving you. Bogart died of esophageal cancer in 1957. Bacall got engaged to Frank Sinatra shortly after, but the relationship ended after she talked publicly about their affair against his wishes. She married actor Jason Robards in 1961, though it seems she never really got over Bogey. Even her second spouse referred to her as the Widow Bogart. "No one has ever written a romance letter better than we lived," she wrote in her memoir. After her death on August 12, 2014, she was interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, the same cemetery as Bogart. And Lauren Bacall admits there's no lightning bolt when she first met Bogart, when she was just 19 years old, first arriving to Hollywood. At one point, director Howard Hawks told her he was thinking of putting her in a movie with either Bogart or Cary Grant. Her reaction: "I thought Cary Grant terrific. Humphrey Bogart, yuck." Hawks introduced Bacall to a 43-year-old Bogart in 1943. "There was no clap of thunder, no lightning bolt," she later wrote. And fear and nerves had Bacall trembling on her first day of shooting with Bogart. But Bogart helped her relax, which she appreciated. She also learned to tuck her chin down to hide her shaking, meaning she had to look up at Bogart, an action that became famous as the look. The two developed a joking rapport as the shoot continued, with observers noting that Bogart became almost giggly around his co-star. The director of To Have and Have Not changed the original ending to show off their undeniable chemistry. In an unusual step for a Hollywood movie, To Have and Have Not was shot in order. This provided a showcase for the developing connection between Bogart and Bacall, which was evident in the scene where she delivers the famous line, "You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow." The film was supposed to have Bogart's character romance another woman, but director Hawks saw how the two were interacting on film and the screenplay was changed, so Bogart's character ended up with Bacall's. As Bacall noted in 2007, "Chemistry, you can't beat chemistry." After Bogart gave Lauren Bacall his phone number on a matchbook, Lauren Bacall told Parade magazine in 1997 that from then on I would get phone calls occasionally at 3 a.m. My mother used to say, "Where do you think you're going so early in the morning? That man, he's a married man." Despite having feelings for Bacall, Bogart remained married to his third wife. The couple's heavy drinking and arguments have resulted in them being nicknamed the Battling Bogarts. Fights could be so destructive that a carpenter was reportedly on call to handle repairs. In 1942, his wife had become violent and enraged and ended up stabbing Bogart. Being married meant Bogart had to see Bacall in secret. Their meetings took place in cars parked on dimly lit streets, at a golf club near the studio, and during breaks in shooting. They called each other Slim and Steve, the nicknames of their characters in To Have and Have Not. Filming To Have and To Have Not ended in May 10, 1944. Shortly after, Bogart sent Bacall a note that said in part, "I know what was meant by to say goodbye is to die a little, because when I walked away from you that last time and saw you standing there so darling, I did die a little in my heart." Though they met over the summer, Bogart felt a duty to stay in his unhappy marriage with his alcoholic wife. And they ended up reuniting for the big sleep, and their connection was stronger than ever. And Bogart and Bacall became married 11 days after his divorce from his wife. By the end of 1944, Bogart had come to a final decision. He hated having to end his marriage to the point that he missed work and disrupted the filming schedule. Bacall later noted, "When Bogey and I were married, the Hollywood gloom set shook their collective heads and moaned. It won't last. We knew better. The catastrophe anticipators didn't consider was that Bogarts were in love." And Lauren Bacall put her career aside to raise their family. Bogart and Bacall would work on 2 more films together, Dark Passage 1947 and Key Largo in 1948. However, Bacall's career was no longer her main focus. Bogey was an old-fashioned man, Bacall told in an interview in 1979. He kidded that a woman's place was in the home, but he was only half kidding. He had divorced 3 actresses and was convinced that a career and marriage don't miss. Bogart proudly stated, "She's my wife, so she stays home and takes care of me." And Bacall made sacrifices such as accompanying Bogart on location so he could shoot The African Queen in 1951 with Katharine Hepburn. The role resulted in his only Academy Award for Best Actor, but the trip required Bacall to leave their young son behind. Yet Bacall had no regrets about her decision. She once told The Guardian, "If I had just my career, I would have missed out on Bogey, on children and the very substance of life." And as she said in another interview, "Thank God I did put our marriage first because it didn't last too long." Bogart died 11 years into their marriage. Bogart was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus in 1956. He went through surgery but remained very ill, with Bacall taking care of him. On January 14th, 1957, he died, and Bacall became a widow at the age of 32. Bogey's death was devastating, but I had to focus on my 2 young children. So I had something kind of constructive to think of, she told People in 1981. Bacall later moved to New York and appeared on Broadway to revamp her career while continuing to make movies. She also was aware that her life remained tied to Bogart's, telling Vanity Fair in 2011, "My obit is going to be full of Bogart, I'm sure." Yet she appreciated the good fortune she'd had to meet and be with her first husband, once saying, "I was so lucky when I was young. What happened to me then sometimes happens to people when they're older, and sometimes never happens, so I feel lucky that I had it at all." So it was really interesting reading about Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. I really didn't know much about them and their huge age difference. I remember when I was younger watching Sabrina with Audrey Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart, and even in that film I always thought it was weird that they were a love interest together, because I always just thought he looked kind of old compared to Audrey Hepburn, so that's interesting that there's such an age gap in the relationship. But I guess even in Hollywood today, there are lots of relationships with age gaps that are similar to that. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!